Captainmidnight.
This video is brought to you by Ren. So, I'm a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan, and when the Flash trailer aired during the Super Bowl, I was too stressed out about the game to actually pay much attention to it. Thankfully, Mahomes and company took care of business, and I was able to sit down and really watch it the next day. Mostly, I was not too surprised by what I saw. We all know that this movie is serving as the bridge between the old DC universe and Gunn's new Gods and Monsters. That couldn't have been the plan when they initially started making the film, but it definitely is now. Add to that the fact that I don't really like this take on Barry Allen in the first place, and it's just hard for me to get all that excited. Even if they are doing a Back to the Future 2 for Man of Steel, which I guess is kind of interesting. But of course, the movie has something going for it that got everyone's attention. The inclusion of Michael Keaton's Batman, making his first film appearance since 1992's Batman Returns. In this video, I want to break down what that could mean for the movie, and honestly, why I'm kind of worried by what we saw here.
It's Batman, like you've never seen him before.
Wow! Hey Joker, a battering surprise! Miss me, Batman!
I'll get back to the actual trailer in a minute, but I think it's worth taking a step back and asking what made Michael Keaton's Batman work in the first place. Because here's the thing, I love Michael Keaton as an actor, he's been great for decades, but I would also argue that his Batman is far from what makes those movies distinct and memorable. In both films, he's very much upstaged by the villains, Jack Nicholson's Joker, and then of course Danny DeVito's Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Bruce Wayne especially takes a backseat in Batman Returns, where he almost feels like an afterthought. It's always been obvious that director Tim Burton was far more drawn to Batman's rogues gallery than the Caped Crusader himself. It's not that Burton thought Keaton wasn't strong enough as Batman or anything, it's just that the villains are a lot more in line with what Burton finds interesting, as evidenced by pretty much his entire career. Then there's the look of those movies, their timeless, gothic, and strange Gotham that seems to take place in both the late 80s, early 90s, and the 1930s of the pulp magazines all at once. If anyone is the true star of the Burton Batman films, it's those sets and that atmosphere. When people remember how much they like these movies, I think it's just as much, if not more so, those elements they're remembering, not just Keaton in the stiffest batsuit known to man. And when I look at this trailer, I don't see any of that. Sure, there's the Batcave, but it's not shot like Burton would shoot it. There's a fight near the end of the trailer with some very, very spotty special effects that I hope get fixed before the movie opens, and it appears to have Keaton Batman just like fighting in broad daylight. There's also how he fights, which isn't in line with the restrictive movement of the suit at all. That last part I can forgive. People want a Batman who can move his neck, sure. But the first part is tough. To me, this Batman and that Tim Burton aesthetic are just inseparable. The fact that this is so divorced from that makes me a lot less excited about the character's return, because there seems to be very little here to connect it back to what I actually liked about those movies. Now, this is where I should acknowledge that this is just a trailer. It's very possible that they're going to nail what they're going for with Keaton here, but these fight scenes, they just don't do much for me. Of course, that's not the only Batman in the trailer, as we also see Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, as well as a glimpse of a new Batsuit. I'm not quite sold on this costume, but I will say I'm happy that Affleck's Wayne is here, and I hope he gets a lot to do. There's this sad, haunted quality to Affleck's Bruce Wayne that has always fascinated me. And whatever problems I have with Batman v Superman and Justice League, I've come to really appreciate that performance over time. I think the Snyder Cut especially really clicked that into place for me. Don't get me wrong, I really like Pattinson's Batman, and I hope to like the Gods and Monsters Batman as well, but it'll always be a bummer to me that Affleck's take never got a film of his own. And I'm a little sad he's going to have to spend another movie talking to this often very annoying Flash. But I'm hoping he gets some kind of resolution here, or at least a send-off worthy of what became a pretty underrated Batman. So those are the two Batmen we know will be here, but I guess there's always a chance that there's more. I've seen some speculation online about if Christian Bale's Batman will make an appearance, and I'm going to take the safe bet here and say that I really, really doubt it. Nolan's trilogy being self-contained has always seemed pretty important to the director and to Bale. Now, that doesn't mean Bale would never do it.
They drove a dump truck full of money up to my house. I'm not made of stone.
But it would surprise me. I would not be shocked to see some Dark Knight trilogy Easter eggs, but if Warner Brothers did manage to back up that dump truck of money and Bale was actually in this, I just don't see them keeping it a secret. After how much money has been sunk into this Flash movie, and with a marketing campaign that really has every reason to de-emphasize the actual star of the movie, I feel like they'd be shouting this from the rooftops if Bale was actually in it. Maybe there'll be some kind of small cameo, but I just don't see it. You know who is here though? Michael Shannon, reprising the role of Zod from Man of Steel. After Shannon said in an interview that he fell asleep watching Batman v Superman, I kind of figured that he was done with the role, but here he is, facing down a new Supergirl. I'm very interested to see how much of this movie he's actually in, but either way I find it pretty interesting. I know the film was shot a while ago, but I think there's something kind of ironic about how much DC Studios wants to move on from the Snyder era and put that all behind them, while also releasing a movie that's remixing and reimagining the story beats of Man of Steel directly. I completely understand why Gunn and company want a fresh start with Superman. I really do. And I know I've talked about this in the past, but man, DC has just handled this all so poorly. Teasing a Cavill comeback in Black Adam, saying, actually no, that's not happening at all, and then marketing literally the next movie they release partially off the plot and imagery of Man of Steel. It's a lot. And I get why it would leave a lot of fans of those movies kind of furious. I think it really speaks to how they really were just throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks those past couple of years. Like I said, I have a hard time getting all that excited about this one. I'm interested to see how they handled balancing all these elements, all the Batman, the Man of Steel stuff, Supergirl. Like, didn't they just announce a Supergirl movie? But I'm guessing that's not going to be the Supergirl featured in this film because it'll be a new actor in the Gods and Monsters timeline. Will any of this make sense to people who aren't heavily invested in this stuff but just want to see a movie about the Flash? Speaking of, the title of this thing is The Flash, and on that front, I don't think it's looking great. The prospect of a second, even more wacky version of Barry Allen being introduced is, well, it's not exactly a thrilling one to me. And after all these years and years of development hell, it's a little frustrating that this barely feels like a Flash movie at all. It doesn't seem to have any Flash villains in it. It also stars someone I do not want to see play Barry Allen again. Like, I wonder how many people who aren't looking into this stuff all the time will turn up expecting to see Grant Gustin. I don't know. I know it's just a trailer. Am I being overly pessimistic about this? I have seen some love for this trailer, and if you really liked it, that's great. But when I see the CG Keaton Batman fighting, I just can't help but wish we got him being able to kind of be his own age as a mentor figure in a Batman Beyond movie instead. I guess between Keaton and retreading Man of Steel, I'm just feeling a little cynical about how much this movie deploys nostalgia. I'm a little worried this film will lack an identity of its own, but there's always a chance it could prove me dead wrong in June. Sadly, we don't live in a reality with one Batman, let alone two, so we kind of have to step up and take care of our own problems. And not to be too much of a bummer, but the climate crisis, kind of a major problem. That's where something like Ren is so helpful. Ren is a website where you can answer a few questions about your lifestyle, they calculate your carbon footprint, then they let you offset your footprint by contributing to a big mix of carbon reduction projects. Everything from protecting rainforests to planting trees to even mineral weathering. As someone who grew up in a state with tons of wildfires, I especially appreciate Biochair in California, which aims to reduce wildfires and promote biodiversity. And when you contribute, you'll even receive updates about the projects you support, which means you get to see what that money is spent on with photos and details on every tree planted, every acre reforested, and every ton of carbon offset. I gotta say, this one has an amazing bonus offer too. Offset your carbon footprint on Ren, and the first 100 people who sign up using the link in the description will have 10 extra trees planted in their name. So go to that link in the description and sign up today.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes, too.